Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Jake Travis from the Hoggatt Project. Yes, once again, you have found your way through the darkness and into the fox den for an episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Yeah, I am so hungry. Absolutely delicious. And now that my shackles have been released and Mr. Travis has set me free, it is once again time to take a walk into the darkness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, yes, once again, it is Midnight Lycanthropy time here on StarFox Radio. We again have Jake Travis from the Hoggatt Project, who will be a new bi-weekly host with us here. He again has found his way through the darkness and werewolf-infested forest to sit down by the late night fire and burn the timber with us as we again read a few chapters from the Midnight Society book. How you been, man?
Doing pretty good. How you been?
It's good to hear. And actually, recently, just before we linked up, I have our other video done. I just need to save it and get it uploaded to all the stuff I was telling you about and do the cover thumbnail. But it's pretty much it, man. Been grinding away, and one of my little brothers got me a yearly subscription to Adobe, so I can just do some next level stuff with my art now. And it's pretty much it. I would like to say the Bruins were making me happy, but the Bruins have been sucking so bad that I have been extremely frustrated when I should be enjoying hockey games. But that's about it, man.
Yeah, I liked Adobe too, but then I'm not I can't pay for monthly subscriptions, so I know like the software, learned on it and everything, and then you kind of just I only use like the free stuff they have online, so I still kind of use it time to time, and then touching base on like sports is it's hilarious how like it's totally out of your control, but that they can set like the tone of your week if they do good or bad.
Yep, isn't that how it is? And a lot of people that don't really get into sports and things, I totally understand that. But being up in New England, that's just how we roll. We are a big sports area, and up here in Maine, we love hockey. So, yeah, when the Bruins and the University of Maine Black Bears aren't doing good, yeah, you got some pretty salty people, man. But what else you been up to?
Yeah, I've been trying to get back into the camping and stuff. I've been sidetracked with other things, and so I just recently went out for a trip yesterday, and yeah, it was good. Had some rain out in the woods. There wasn't any. I didn't even come across anybody actually. I heard some trains in the distance. There was always airplanes flying overhead. I think I heard a dog bark in the distance. And other than that, it was just a really peaceful adventure.
That's great stuff, man. And did you want to give yourself a plug, because I know what you're all about, and anyone that watches your thread should know what you're about. But whereas you are going to be coming on here more frequently, I would like you to give yourself a plug and just explain what you do, what you enjoy, and yeah, man.
All right, let me see. I could say I've always been fascinated with the outdoors, and so much so that I was, camping all the time with friends and things like that. And I ended up getting into land surveying, which is all like outdoor mapping of just any type of terrain. You have like residential, commercial, and then out in the country, chopping line for miles in the mountains and stuff like that. So did that for a while, and I was fascinated in things like Bigfoot and UFOs and ghosts and just things that were just not the norm. I guess it's because I felt like I wasn't the norm, but I also had like strange experiences. And I found out that other people I talked to, the more you talk about it, you find out other people have the same thing. So it's interesting to hear stories and be able to connect like that. And I do have a few that I could mention or talk about this time, but yeah, basically, artist. I played music most of my life, and that's it. That's it about me. I'm on YouTube now, and I make currently I'm making camping videos because I love the outdoors. I'm trying to just make a record of all my adventures.
It's great stuff right there for sure. And to the audience, we will have Jake's link up and all the videos that we do collaborate on. And also, I wanted to, yeah, have you touch base on a few of the things you didn't get a chance to on the last episode before I then dive into some strange encounters actually from the Washington State area. There are two of them that I think you might be pretty interested in. I have a larger amount on file, but those are just the two I chose.
Yeah, okay. I'm interested to hear it. I could say for the one that's on the top of my mind that I'd like to share now is what we're talking about a UFO, right? Is I was down past Greenwater, Forest Road 72, I believe, or it's at 74. It's one of those out that way, and basically the lake, it's called Lonesome Lake, and they call it that because it's a 15-mile trek up these mountain roads to get there, and you can't get there but only a few months of the year, right? And um, so we went up all this way, a buddy of mine and myself, and we got up to the lake. We checked it out, and there's like an old cabin structure there as well. And we're like, all right, this is cool, but now we need to find a place to camp. So if you go back down like a half a mile or so, there's another road that takes you out and around, and there's this giant view of the mountain right there, Mount Rainier. Well, at the time, that spot was taken, so we backed on out of there, going back to the entry point of where this lake was, where it Y's back down the mountain, and we found kind of like a little turnoff there. And so, as far as we know, it's just the group of people that are about a mile up the road with the view of the mountain, and then it's just us. There was nobody at the lake at the time, and you're 15 miles up the mountain. And I just remember it was a clear sky, and I was looking up. Our thing is like trying to find the satellites, and they're just always like cruising across the sky, and you can see them like reflecting as they spin. And I'm pointing out the ones that I see, and I kid you not, the strangest thing was I saw three in a triangle all moving together, and I didn't say anything at first because I wanted to verify for myself what I'm seeing before I told my buddy. And as I'm looking up, I see they're moving at the same pace and they're not spreading apart from each other for a good 5 solid real seconds before I go, wow, this is bizarre. This isn't just satellites. And I tell him like, hey, Eric, check this out, and I get him to look where I'm pointing. And as soon as he lays eyes on where it's at up there, he takes his headlamp and he starts flashing at it. And as soon as he flashed at it, it's like they knew that we were seeing something wasn't right, and they all dispersed. But none of them like dispersed like crazy fast or did any kind of weird maneuvers. They just all like slowly moved out and away from each other, so they were no longer in a triangle formation. Which is odd because it doesn't sound like it's all part of the same thing if that's what they did, but that's what we saw, and I can't explain it.
Dang, some pretty gnarly stuff right there for sure. And I know we're out in the West Coast where you're located, that one of my friends, Brown Dwarf, he's in California. He says some pretty interesting stuff too. And then I have some hosts of mine and friends of mine from Idaho, same thing. And I don't really dive into that topic just because I have so much to cover here with the missing people and prehistoric and modern day predator behaviors, etc. But I will say, here are my thoughts on aliens. Of course, there's no way in heck that our universe, we are the best to offer. And also, anyway, it's already been proven that they found microbacteria and things. So technically, those are extraterrestrial life anyhow. So boom. But yeah, of course. I mean, the galaxy is a very large place. But do I personally think that they come down and abduct people and all of this and want our Earth? I do not. And the reason I say that is we've pretty much already stripped the Earth completely of all its nutrients. I mean, the Earth is, well, we all know, in a dire need of help. It's on the decline. And also, humans are pretty uninteresting. I mean, we just blow each other up and things like that. So in actuality, any sort of, intellectual race has zero purpose to want to interact with us.
Yeah, that's some good points. Yeah, I don't know what it was. I'm just kind of curious if anybody else knows, if it was just like a random time that I happened to look up at it and it was just 3 satellites all grouped together. It was just weird that you flash a light and then they disperse.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is, whether it's something in the sky or something on the ground, there's always something interesting going on if you pay attention.
Yeah, that's some beautiful stuff right there. And I do know that you could have still seen potentially something that's an extraterrestrial craft. I don't know the most about this, but I was watching some really smart people the other night talk about how, in theory, there are little wormholes just from energy, how they can be created. And like one pilot, within, I think, like 5 minutes, traveled a massively far distance and then just ended up over Miami and stuff. So there are some people out there that think potentially with these wormholes that, per se, intelligent beings could be using them as kind of like wormholes. So maybe when you do see something like that, it's just popping out from another wormhole before it enters into another one. So yeah, I'm not saying that people aren't seeing, potentially extraterrestrial crafts. I'm just saying I don't think they come down and take our cattle and just like decide to do strange experiments on them. I mean, a cow, like what? Like, I don't know. So things like that, I don't necessarily buy into, but like the previous things, and like I just said about the potential wormholes and things, yeah, that all, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, could get in on that.
Some pretty gnarly stuff for sure. So let me potentially blow your mind to an extent and then also get your feedback after. I got to bust open the good old Chromebook here. So, yes, we are going to stay over on the West Coast in Washington here. So we have December 29th, 1906, Tumwater. The 12-year-old daughter of a local farmer named T.W. Egan was taken by a mysterious animal. Egan had left his daughter and young son home while he went to run some errands when the encounter occurred. The young girl went out to the shed to grab potatoes to cook. and her brother also did for dinner. Suddenly, a quote-unquote bear man grabbed her and began carrying the little girl away into the forest, screaming for help and also screaming back for the beast to stop. Both children are screaming very loudly. And then, well, the little brother realizes he can't do anything, so he turns around and runs inside screaming that this bear man is carrying away his sister and is running on two legs. Shortly after, a search party arrives, only to find the young girl crying and covered in scratches. When asked how she had escaped this strange beast, Egan's daughter said after carrying for what seemed to be a while, maybe 300 yards, something seemed to spook the creature, and then it just dropped her before bolting back off into the forest and jumping up and vanishing into the trees.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So what was it? What was
Good
the
question.
What spooked it?
So, what my science team and myself and some other people potentially understand or think is that, well, we think these things are able to comprehend what the potential outcome is going to be. Meaning, once they heard the screaming and then people are coming now to look for this little girl, what's the payoff? If it
Oh
could have got
yeah.
away without being noticed, then I think sure. But now that everyone's screaming, looking for this girl, bear man, I don't know. I think they're smart enough to realize that they just opened up a can of worms that they can't necessarily, stomach. So they then realize that the risk reward is not what it is that they originally potentially thought. So I think a lot of times, say if you and I are out and about and you see something or I see something and it's watching us, I think it's judging whether or not it's worth the risk reward. Whereas if you are, a woman by yourself or a smaller man by yourself, a younger man or a child, easy pickings. Or even if you and I are out there, meaning this thing's been watching us, you're 30 yards ahead of me, I'm 30 yards behind you, maybe even less. It's not like you're turning around and checking on me every 2 seconds. I mean, again, I'm not as outdoorsy as you are, but if you're out there with one of your friends, sure, you guys are talking for a while, but there has to be a point in time where one of you might be behind the other one and you're not talking to each other, correct?
Well, yeah, actually, I just thought about this the other day because when you're filming, you're talking to the camera. And for some reason, it's like every time that you're talking, whether it's you're with a buddy or you're talking to the camera, there's just, you're making some kind of commotion. That's when you give the animals or creatures, whatever is out there, you give them the chance to have like some natural cover to move around. And that's when I hear stuff. And so you're just like, oh, you stop doing what you're doing. You go, did you hear that? Did you hear that? And then they stop. Hey, and it's just this, it happens all the time. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was like, all right, I have this audio recorder. I'm just going to leave this sit here and I'm going to go about my business. And whatever happens, it'll pick something up. So I haven't gone through my footage or my audio yet. I have several hours of it, but I'm expecting to find stuff, whether it's just branches cracking or if it's something making some kind of growl or what have you. I don't know. But yeah, it sounds like that makes a lot of sense. The risk versus reward. Uh, Same thing like with the human, but like if
Mm-hmm.
it's too much trouble, how hungry are you? Was the meal worth it? Maybe I'll get a meal somewhere else where it's easier and I don't get noticed.
Yeah, that's all. It just seems to make, logical sense in regards because animals are smart and everyone, seems to think they're not, but that's the tactic that anything is going to do. It's just going to wait for proper time frames just to be stealthy. I mean, coyotes are super stealthy and are known to purposely stake out areas where mother's giving birth to the baby, and yeah, that they specifically wait for that because they realize they can capitalize off of that. And that's just what I'm saying, risk reward. And say, like I'm behind you 15 yards, you're ahead of me, right? And well, I'm behind you now, and I'm 6'1", but I'm only like 158 pounds, 165, so I'm not really, jacked or anything. I mean, I'm athletic and stuff, but I mean, I'm not gonna look potentially as something that's fully off the menu. Meaning, if you were, with a crop top and you're a 6'6", like Arnold Schwarzenegger or something, you might look like you're a little bit more of a harder version to take down. No different than a herd of buffalo when they try to go for the smaller ones that haven't matured yet, or the babies that don't really go right after that huge bull unless it's injured, more or less. So just because the jacked
Yeah.
person, if they're injured and they're walking slower, sure. If you and I are out there and one of us is behind the other one, that's a very easy time frame to just have something snag you and pull you away.
Yeah, and you got to have that person who's in the back checking the back too.
Yes. So
Because some can
realistically,
easily
there could be
be
three of us.
following you for a while.
Yeah, where before you even look back, something could have taken two people behind you, and by the time you turn around, you're like, "What the heck, dude?"
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was like, I went on a backpacking trip. That was the thing I did last. It wasn't car camping. I had to hike in 2 miles and find a spot, and whatever you bring with you is what you got. And I forgot how difficult that can be. Is like lugging around 50 pounds of weight on your back and the camera gear. And yeah, it was just like one of the things that I brought was the thermal monocular. And I was just thinking, do I really want to bust this out and see something right now, or am I just gonna let sleeping dogs lie, And yeah, so that crossed my mind for a second. Too, is just like, I can't get out of here that easy. Like, as if I were in a car or something, I gotta hike out 2 miles. And do I just leave my gear and haul it? What do you do?
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's a pretty gnarly stuff right there,
I,
man, for
I had
sure.
some bear spray, I guess, and a knife, so it's something. I could put up somewhat of a fight.
Yeah, and I mean, my best advice to you would be like with anything. I mean, just carry things that make loud noises, carry things that are deterrent, meaning, bear spray or anything that is going to cause an animal to be, kind of caught off guard. Like if you were to spray lemon juice in something's face, or you're sitting there beeping a huge air horn, or you're taking a ton of lights and shining it in something's eyes. Those are all things you really want to do. I mean, just make things deterred from wanting to,
Unpleasant.
yeah, come and get you, man. I mean, because I do not suggest anyone does this to their cat or such, but I mean, if you were to shine a flashlight in your house cat's face, how's it going to react? Not going to like it, right? So anything that's nocturnal and that has a little bit more power in their eyesight. I mean, these things are seen during the day as well, but a lot of times at night, anything that's nocturnal is not going to like those lights at all, which is why certain types of hunting, I'm not a hunter and never would be. I love animals too much, but people I know hunt, and there's laws and such where you can't shine lights into the field because it stuns them for a second, animals and things, because again, they can't see, it blinds them.
Yeah, so I've heard the same thing with fishing, is you can't like shine a light in the water because it attracts the fish.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Pretty interesting stuff for sure. And before I read you the next one here, do you have any friends of yours that have potentially ever had any sort of strange encounters with what they think might be listed as a dogman, or have you ever heard any sort of strange howls or found, any sort of really large human-like canine prints or anything?
Well, actually, on the last trip I went out on, I did find some. They're about the size of my hand, and you could see the toes. And so I just assumed that was like a black bear. That's what I thought. So I was like, oh, got my spray if this thing comes out here or whatever. But I took a little video of it and just showed like how it's definitely some fingers or toes that grooved into the mud, because there was some really muddy parts on the trails out there. So it was really easy to spot if something stepped in it. But yeah, one thing I can think of, a friend told me that was just really bizarre, and I guess there's like a term for what it could be, but it's basically something that's cloaked or invisible. And he said him and a friend of his, they went and did a hike that was off trail. You just kind of like blaze your own trail up the side of a mountain, and they get up to like a little part where it plateaus, and he was watching this branch, and it looked like somebody was just playing with the branch with their hand, and the branch was just kind of like going wild, and there was no wind, no nothing. And yeah, I couldn't explain it, so I don't know what that could be, if that falls into the Dogman category, or what category that would fall into, but that would surely freak me out.
Yeah, that's some pretty gnarly stuff right there, man, for sure. Because, well, what potentially is happening out there is the real question. I mean, we do know people are missing, because anywhere from 1,100 to 2,400 people go missing every year. 5% never come back or never found at all. This is occurring in national forests, near cave systems. All right, I mean, what's happening? And then you now have people that are extremely educated being able to verify that these are unknown vocalizations, and that these tracks really shouldn't be up here. Some look like a baboon, etc., hyenas, and yeah, some pretty gnarly stuff for sure, because something's occurring. And I don't know, I just think people should definitely be more aware. I mean, there's a lot going on involving normal, nefarious people that are out there, meaning human beings like you and I. Then there's obviously known predators. There's just misfortunes. There's a lot of things, people that don't want to be found. But then when you remove all those, you still have some really bizarre circumstances. And yeah, how do you feel about all that?
Well, I think that, yeah, for some reason I'm drawn to that, so they're gonna get me. It's like you tell me these stories of these odd things happening, and I want to go investigate it, and I should have people out there with me. That, I mean, like I said, when I was out there solo, I had the thermal, and I was like, do I really want to see something? Or just wait till they come closer in and mess with me if something is out here, or are they just gonna check to see why is somebody out here and leave me alone? But if you're with a group of people, all of a sudden you're ready to aggravate them, I guess is a good word, and just be like, yeah, I'll start making noises, bang on the trees, go hike through here all over at night, and really find out what's going on. But yeah, I just kind of always believed in the calmer approach, just kind of like, if something was curious and wanted to see what I was doing, like, why is this human out here in the middle of nowhere? It seems like it would be more of a friendly visitor that way than if you're out there hooting and hollering, shooting guns and stuff.
Yeah, that's some pretty gnarly stuff right there, again, for sure. Because, like you said, I don't know. I definitely encourage anyone out there, at least bring something to protect yourself. Of course, having some sort of firearm would be the best way to protect yourself, meaning some of my really good friends have semi-automatic and automatic weaponry, and they're former special forces, former SWAT, and they just make sure that they are protected. And they also even have a couple of grenades and things, a few of them. And the reason I say that, though, is because, well, you need to protect yourself. And I've explained this before. If this is living like you and I, which portions of it definitely state that it is, it can be unalived. Okay. I used this example earlier, let's take a megalodon from the ocean, right? And we're going to take a Tyrannosaurus Rex, okay? Both dominant predators. Well, if you took a submarine or even like a German U-boat, which wasn't even a real submarine, and had it shoot a torpedo at the megalodon, that big old bad megalodon is just going to go boom, blow up, okay, right? Because
Yeah.
it's physical like you and I, correct? Okay. So now same thing with a T-Rex, huge badass predator. Take a rocket launcher, shoot it at its kneecap. What's going to happen? It's going to drop like a hot rock, correct? So in theory, again, if something is living like you and I, it can be taken down. But I think a lot of times people are shooting at things that they don't have the right caliber for, meaning if they're out deer hunting and they come across something like a massive bear or a dogman or something, you don't have the correct caliber. But if you have a semi-automatic or automatic military spec weapon with laser point on that, and you pop that thing in the chest or the head, you just put like 8 rounds in that thing's dome.
Yeah, and then you also have like the people that are scared though, and they are just shooting at stuff. And yeah, so you got to be able to identify what it is. It could be somebody in a ghillie suit, trying to prank you, and that's a hard lesson to learn. But yeah, I don't know. I had going on this last backpacking trip, I had the option to carry, and I go bear spray or the handgun, and it's like handgun's heavy, and I also had this perimeter device I wanted to try out, and that thing's heavy, and it's supposed to like fire off a shotgun shell round if something trips the wire. Or I think the one that I have, it makes a really loud alarm sound, like 100 decibels or something like that. But yeah, when it comes to backpacking, it's all about counting your ounces. And I was just like, man, I'm going to have to carry this thing in. I'm probably not going to use it. I'm going to have to carry it out. And yeah, so that's kind of like this. But yeah, if I needed to use it, then I would be kicking myself like, oh, wow, just because I wanted to shave 2 pounds. And here we go. Now I got to throw rocks at the thing.
But I mean, even that though is a way. I mean, we have some supposed encounters where it's kind of like with lions, all right? When a lion sees a ton of zebras, that's why they have stripes, because it distracts them. And have you ever seen a video where the lion's head is just left, right, left, right? It doesn't know what to focus on, correct? So in a couple instances, yeah, people didn't really have much more, but they had large rocks. And there was a group of 4 or 5 of them chucking rocks and screaming at the top of their lungs at this thing. Again, a risk reward. I mean, a predator doesn't really want to get hurt, and now you got sensory overload. You got like 4 or 5 people screaming at the top of their lung, right? So obviously, it's probably got a lot better hearing than you and I do. So it's probably not too nice on that good old eardrums. And sure, it might be a apex predator, but they're pelting it with rocks. Okay, so again, I don't think that it enjoyed that whatsoever, and it just deterred it from the situation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, um, I agree with that. Yeah, you got to do something. But yeah, just it kind of reminds me of that one guy who was, I think he was running, uh, and then a cougar. He had an encounter with a cougar, and he was like, "I'm much bigger than you." He kept talking
Mm-hmm.
to it, yeah, and backing away, and it just kept following him forever. And yeah, he did everything that you're supposed to, and it just, I guess, it was really hungry. Let him go, but yeah, it was like he was thinking risk versus reward. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really hungry right now. This would feed me for a while.
But is it worth what could happen? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Because when you stand up and you put your arms all around and you have a stick and you're slamming it down or something, it's no different than how you and I remember things from our past that are dwelled in from our ancestors, meaning why people, always see strange faces in the forest, even though it might not be there, because points in time, other remnants of our ancestors or tribes who are coming to get us and things like that. It's no different with animals. I mean, they know what a human is, okay? And it's
Yeah.
still in their DNA as to what could occur, meaning they still potentially not necessarily fear us, but they understand, like I said, the risk reward aspect right there. I mean, if this human, like I said, I'll use myself, 6'1", right? 158, 162, depending. But then say I have a metal bat in my hand, right? And I'm sitting there
Mhm.
slamming that bat down. As that cat comes at you, yeah, it's still gonna get you. But if I swing that bat as hard as I can and I clock that thing in the side of the skull, do you think it's gonna really want to come back for more?
No, probably not. Unless it's like a mosquito or something, they don't seem to care. They're just
Yeah.
kamikaze, go in for the blood, and just go ahead, get me. I don't care.
Whereas if it was packed now, that's not going to matter. But like I'm saying, for something that's especially solitary, like a cougar or something, that's not a good payoff, because you could have just shattered its lower jaw now and it can't eat at all. Or what if you don't even hit it in the head, but you crack it right in the shoulder blade? I mean, a metal bat probably could crack some sort of bone in its shoulders. It's just a risk reward, man. Usually predators
Yeah,
don't, yeah, go
can't
after other
really go to
predators.
the hospital and get bandaged up real quick or anything, can it?
No, and you're in trouble. Whereas if you're in a pack, they have seen wolves and things tend to their elders, and if you are a herbivore, you can bed down and heal yourself potentially. But yes, if you are a solitary hunter, you're in some deep crap, whether you're a leopard, a tiger, a cougar, exactly. So, but when it comes to packs, man, that's a whole different ball game because you hit that first wolf, it doesn't matter. You got 10, 15 more, you're done, okay? But
Yeah.
something that is solid, and they're used to taking on things, okay? But like I said, solitary predators are looking at the ambush tactic and a quick way to take you down, okay? I mean, for example, black bear. Okay, still a pretty decent bear and it can kick some butt cheeks, but you take a black bear and you put it up against, I don't know, let's say a pack of 8 to 10 coyotes. That's not going to stick around to deal with that, okay? Because the coyotes are still going to be biting it, ripping chunks of its fur out, and it can't cover and take on all 8 of those coyotes or 10 of them at once. So even though if it came to survival and that bear had to stand its ground and it was either the coyotes or that bear, sure, it could probably win that battle, but then is it going to survive afterwards from its wounds? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, probably not. It's gonna be rough.
Exactly. So that's just why it's really interesting, and a lot of people just don't realize that you do have predators clash sometimes, but it's not really necessarily
Yeah.
a consistent thing unless you don't have a food source. Like in the Everglades, you have alligators and pythons, which really shouldn't be there attacking each other. So those are both apex predators, but they have consumed all the game animals for the most part, like the large rodents and everything else, that now you just have a plethora of pythons and alligators. So they're just eating each other. But in a stable environment, that wouldn't be occurring.
Yeah, I like that analogy. Yeah. There's plenty of food, then you're not gonna see crazy stuff like that happen.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big thing that people should be worried about with the ocean, for example. I mean, squid are super dominant, but as, fish and things are being taken out of the ocean, more or less, it's going to be like a squid apocalypse because squid consume each other and everything. And now that they're not eating and getting their proper fish and things, they're attacking other larger things like sharks and whales and such. And yes, so in a stable environment, they wouldn't be attacking the shark now, but all things are off when you're hungry and stuff. You know what I mean? So that's like with the Russia super PACs where you have like 400, 500 wolves that are teaming up over there when there's these huge freezes and they just go in and attack like the villagers and the livestock and everything like that. So
Man, here in Washington, I don't got to worry about that. But I didn't think that there were foxes because I heard a weird noise that made me think of coyote. But then I was like, maybe it was a fox. It just made me think of an animal that size. And I was like, is that like the sound a fox would make? We don't have that, do we? And I looked it up, and apparently we do. So yeah, it's interesting to me. There's just a bunch of stuff out there that even I'm not aware of that I could cross, and but I think a lot of it's not going to harm me. But then, like you said, I might go in there with my gun and not have the right caliber, and I know it takes a 10 millimeter to do damage to a bear. So if you got a 9, that's not going to do much. It's just going to tick it off.
yeah, exactly. You're just gonna really tick it off. And people don't realize just how badass animals are. I mean, look at Gustav, right? Okay. I don't know if you ever heard of him before we dive into this last encounter. So that giant crocodile, I believe it was a Nile crocodile, hasn't been seen for man, 10, 12 years now. So they don't really know if it's finally just succumbed to old age or if people finally got it. But it was rumored to have eaten hundreds of people, okay? And you had people throwing grenades at this thing, shooting at it. There was even pock marks on its shoulder from, those military boats that have like the Rambo machine gun on it, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, shot at this thing and still didn't unalive it. It was just peppered with all these wounds and things. But again, it's an apex predator. And yes, that's plenty of heavy artillery. But again, they're not hitting it in any sort of spot really that would be vital. Whereas if you did hit it in the back of the head, boom, good night, where its brain is. You see what I'm saying? But they're hitting it in like the shoulder blades, the back of the tail, and things like that. So it's got a lot of armor on it.
Dang, Gustav, I'll have to check that out.
Nightmare fuel, man. Yeah, you really should, dude. There is some stuff where, I mean, it's common sense. I don't care if people got to get water or not, man. I mean, in tropical areas where the water, you can't see the bottom, there's going to be some things in there that you really do not want to come up against. And yeah, that is one of the things you really don't want to meet is a crocodile. That is for darn sure, man. And this next encounter is about as gnarly as that. So we're going to go some old school time here. 1945 all the way up to 1991 at Hannaford Nuclear Site, Klickitat County. During the Cold War, Dr. Lauren Donaldson from the University of Washington and Bill Bear began working on the Manhattan Project. They were also involved in another experiment called Castle Bravo testing during this time frame. The pair was working on experimentation with apex predators in an attempt to build assistance for the military. At the same time, began working on the Manhattan Project, the Russians and the SS began experimentation on apes and other variants of animals in an attempt to build some sort of super soldier army. Dr. Donaldson was specifically picked for his success of creating a hybrid trout called the Donaldson trout, which is capable of living in fresh and salt water. It is also important to understand that at this time, had also begun training dolphins to protect important underwater locations, even going as far as to train them to take intruders to the surface to be questioned by waiting associates. These dolphins would go in and prick you non lethally with an inflatable that would then bring you to the surface. Dr. Barr admitted in 3 separate videos that he and Dr. Donaldson had been working on experimentation with dangerous predators, and that somehow 6 or more of them had outsmarted their handlers, escaping their restraints and dashing off into the surrounding landscape. They both proceeded to say the majority were then caught and brought back, but not all of them, and they never specified on what it was that they were doing truly.
Oh, yeah, never specified, but we know that they lost 6 of them. Great. Wow. Yeah. I heard a story like that in the national parks from a retired ranger, I guess, and they said it was like I want to say it was the northeast quadrant, whatever it was. They said that there was some strange stuff going on there, and it was like you're saying that they were creating some kind of superhuman werewolf being, and it was people were going missing, and it's because like when they stumbled upon the cave that it lived in. Like you just get this really foul stench and bones everywhere, and yeah, it was picking off all the hikers and dragging them back into the cave and eating them, and it was this whole uh, experiment. And sure enough, it got out of hand, and then they flew in choppers and all sorts of artillery, and that was it. Like they closed down the part of the mountain that he was talking about for a week or so, and then it was gone. Everybody was there was nothing more to be had over in that area. So I thought that was a pretty interesting story. that I heard on YouTube from some retired park ranger. And I was like, yeah, I could totally believe this. So there you go. Klickitat County.
Yeah, pretty gnarly stuff, man, for sure. And there's just so much out there that we don't really truly understand, like you were saying. I mean, there's parts to make sure to be logical about things, but then also make sure to not buy into everything. But I think sometimes it's really important, though, that even though something might not seem to fully have the credible resources to it, if it still provides something that could then fall into other categories, still needs to be looked at, meaning it's unfortunate, but you could have, say, a website or such that has put out things that were misinterpreted before or not correct, but then other times they're correct. Okay, that happens in sports all the time, meaning certain people will claim so and
Yeah.
so is going to get traded, incorrect. But then other times they're super right about something. So isn't it still important though to then still look into when they claim something, I guess? Like, I mean, I don't know. I try to, like I said, always just find reasonings why certain things like don't plug in to make sense, if that is, making sense, I
Yeah.
guess.
And that's awesome that you do further research into it, whereas I just kind of have an open mind and I'm like, do I believe that could happen? Yeah, I could totally see it happen. Truth is stranger than fiction. So, yeah, and I was just thinking what else it reminded me of that story. And it was that when I was younger, we grew up on a lake and we went swimming all the time. But then I forget how the rumor started. Uh, but somebody had said that they released some piranhas in the lake, and you're like, oh, but can they do that? Aren't they like salt water? They can't survive in fresh water, and whatever the myth or what was about it, it was still like, I'm freaked out now because I go swimming in that lake. And I remember me and some friends, we swam out to the dock, and my buddy said, I saw something in the water, and I was like, no, you didn't. And we're like, so now we're all like stranded on this dock. The shore is about 200 feet away, and we're like looking uh, for something. And I kid you not, I saw something that crawled out from underneath the dock that looked like a fish, like a moss covered fish, and then it just went right back underneath. For all I know, it could have been like a buoy or something, but it looked like a fish, like the piranha that we were scared of. And then my friend, he said on the other side, he was like, it's over here, it's over here. And so everybody like went to go look, and he took that opportunity to run and dive off the other side and start swimming for it. so, so that's what we all did. He got a head start and we all just jumped in and swam to the shore. But yeah, that was freaky, and I have no idea if somebody did release them and how long they would survive or any of that. But it scared the crap out of me as a kid.
Yeah, I could see that could be pretty gnarly. And to actually bring a little bit of credence to what you had said before we let you get back to the busy schedule you're doing, that I believe it was in Florida, there is a certain version of a piranha. It's a much larger version of a piranha, okay? And it's begins with a P, its name. I can't say it fully correctly, but it has large teeth that look like human teeth, more or less, but they're razor sharp, and they're actually known as nut crushers, meaning in areas where they should be existing, not here, they take off men's, yes, things, and they'll
Ouch.
pretty much eat anything. Yeah, dude. But they are down now in Florida and stuff again where they shouldn't be. So pretty gnarly, man.
Yeah, see, so I used to swim all the time, and but not in the ocean. The ocean is where I draw the line, and I guess it was Jaws. Once I saw that, it was like scared the crap out of me. But in 2020, I was over in Ireland, got stuck over there for 6 months, and one of the ladies who was helping us out with those Airbnbs, she used to, or she probably still does. She swims in the Atlantic every single day. And so she convinced me. I'm like, this lady does it. I'm gonna go swimming, you know. So she said that there's this hidden waterfall like back in this tucked away in this little like open cave area, and you couldn't see it from the shore, so you just had to know about it. And even locals from the area didn't know about it, but she was like, yeah, it's just over here. And they're like, you have to do this, you have to. And I was like, oh, all right. So I go out there, and it's a good like 500 feet. You go out, and then you turn the corner, and here's this giant waterfall, and the swells would like bob you up and down like 10 feet. So you'd have to be careful that it doesn't like knock you into the side of the rock walls or anything. But um, there's two ways to exit out, and you can go through like a tunnel, or you can come back in the way that you came, where it's more open, and you can see the sky and it lights up the area and everything. But I was like, heck, I made it this far. I'm going to go through the tunnel, right? And for whatever reason, all the other people, none of them followed me. And so I was the only one. And what I didn't know is it didn't take you parallel with the entryway. It actually pushed you further out into the sea. So by the time I got through this tunnel and I'm looking back to shore, I'm way out there. It feels like I'm a quarter mile or half a mile out or something. And they're already like, so I'm the only one out there, and all I can think of is there's probably a shark just waiting for me. I'm like out here on my own. I'm the only one. Easy pickings. And I just kind of like curled up on the side of the rock for a little bit, and I just said, there's only one way to get out of this, and you have to go for it. So luckily that ended well. I didn't have anything like brush up against my leg or any kind of a counter. I made it back okay, but that freaked me out. I'm glad I overcame it though. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I could see how that could be pretty gnarly. And on a final note here, something that was not similar to that, but involves a shark real quick. As the doctor I used to work for went down to Florida for a convention, and he brought his kayak because he was a very outdoorsy individual. And he said he heard a big whoosh, looked over and saw a 12, maybe 15-foot tiger shark. It was bigger than his kayak, just literally
Oh,
looking out of the water at him with this massive black eye before, just swimming off and just causing a big wake. And he said at that point in time, he had never felt so vulnerable because if that thing really wanted him, it could have got him.
yeah, and when you get that overwhelming fear, you do stupid stuff like maybe even tip over the kayak. Like you're like, I would never tip it over, but now all of a sudden I don't know how to balance in this thing.
Isn't that so funny, man? That reminds me of, I
Yeah.
can't remember what commercial it was, but you have like that guy that's supposed to be a serial unaliver, and you have the people that acting like they would be in a movie, like bozos, and someone's like, let's go to the running car. They're like, no, why would you do that? Let's hide behind the chainsaws. And then
Yeah.
the guy that's supposed to be hunting them is just sitting behind them, shaking his head like, are these people serious? And then after you hear him again, they're like, we got to run this way. The other person's like, no, let's go to the graveyard. And it's just like, yeah, every terrible possible decision that people could be making, they always do make.
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of truth to that too. It's just like you get overwhelmed with you don't know what you're doing.
Isn't that the truth? Well, is there
Yeah.
anything else you would like to touch base on, man, before we let you get rolling, brother?
I can't think of anything, but yeah, just thanks for having me on again. Yeah, it was good talking with you. We have to learn more about this Dogman stuff. So send me some links or some resources for me to chew on until the next
Yeah,
time we hook up.
of course, man. I'll send you some things to look into. And yeah, of course, if you ever want to talk about something when you roll on, let me know as well. But if not, if you want me to hit you up with a topic bi-weekly before you come on, that's easy because I have like 550 pages. So we can definitely do that for sure, man.
Ooh, nice.
Yes, great stuff. Well, to the audience, we do need to allow Jake Travis, aka the Hoggatt Project, to get back to things he needs to do. But if you enjoy content that is out of the realm of what is spoken about here on Midnight Lycanthropy, definitely go over and check out his thread, which will be in the description. And as mentioned, Jake has a numerous amount of things he dives into. So it's not just the stuff we talk about here. He's outdoors, he's camping, he's doing all kinds of things. So if you like watching somebody interact with you and get out there, well, he is the person you should check out. But until then, this will be the conclusion of the meeting of the Midnight Society. And thanks for hanging out with us tonight, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Ooh, you legends, you. I do adore every single one of you. And thank you for tuning in tonight for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Feed the algorithm. And I will see you very soon.